Good day, everyone, and welcome to another creative episode. Absolute pleasure to be here with you today. In today's episode, I thought I'd get a little bit deep and personal regarding art, of course. First of all, before I begin the episode, I wanted to quickly say to the gentleman in faith, I hope you have read my email and my proposal to commit to becoming my Archibald sitter. I would absolutely love to have that opportunity. Wouldn't it be unreasonable to imagine this project in a much different way than what people perhaps have thought about before regarding painting your portrait? I think there's an absolute opportunity for art to tell a different story that is absolutely suitable to the magnificent journey, trials, tribulations, and trepidations that you have had. So if you do happen to read my letter and hopefully watch this video, I do hold faith that we have the opportunity to expand on that project. And certainly to the CEO that has also received my email, I hope that you consider forwarding that proposal to this gentleman. And hopefully we have a new collaboration for something that would be unique for next year's Archibald Prize. Okay, so in today's creative episode, I wanted to address a couple of questions that I think dive a little bit into the depth of how is it that you paint, what you paint, and what you paint. And this comes on the back of a couple of conversations that I've had and questions that seem to be unifying questions that I keep being asked over and over again. And that is, how did you start painting and how do you know that that is your style? And that was the generic base of the conversation. So today's conversation is one, what tool is best for me to paint? And now that's my first topic of discussion. Second is, what is my technique and how do I discover that? And third, what do I need to learn about my way of painting or my own personal art practice? These questions on the surface might seem a little bit pedestrian, or perhaps thinking that it has nothing to do with what my art practice is about. But I thought I'd share a personal perspective, something that has definitely worked for me, some stories that you might find helpful. And as I've always said, there are nuggets in everything that we do. And if you find a gold nugget throughout this discussion, please do take it and incorporate it in your art journey. And everybody would have their own different levels that they're at with their art practice, and certainly different nuggets that will work for you. But nonetheless, grab your cup of tea, as I have mine, and let's get down into the nitty-gritty of what tool is best for my art practice. Okay, so what tool is it best for me to paint with? Now, I've also made some couple of notes, so bear with me. I will do my best to cover everything that I could think of to put into this creative video. Now, we all want to start to paint like art masters. I certainly went through that process the moment I picked up brush and oil paint set, and I thought, yep, this is exactly what I want to be like. The fallacy in that statement that perhaps we are not as honest with about ourselves is that we want to paint like somebody else because that will give us the quickest step, the quickest road, pavement, whatever you want to call it, towards being validated by the external world, friends, family, society, socioeconomic sectors. And this is the first thing I noticed, that whenever I wanted to, or when I started to paint, I wanted to have a certain technique that said, I am like X, whatever that is for you. Now, you know, all things that you try to hide are the things that you need to really let come forward. So meaning, when you're wanting to paint like somebody else, it says that I can't make a mistake when I paint like me because that's just not good enough. What will others think if I show my authentic self when I paint like me? So therefore I'm going to paint like somebody else. I'm terrible at my own technique, so I'm going to emulate somebody else. I'm not worthy is another thought process that goes through us. When I paint like me, so I'm going to be like somebody else. And at the same time, if I attempt to paint like somebody else, that will diminish the criticisms that I receive, and I'll feel a lot better about who I am. Creating art that you like is the first step to knowing what tools are best for you. And I'll dive into that a little bit more. Don't focus on art that will get you validation. This is a fleeting and short-term process. Because when we focus on what's popular, what will give us validation, what will give us clout, things change very quickly in our external environment. Change is the only constant. So when you attempt to try to stay on that train of what's popular, you'll quickly learn that you will not be able to keep up with those moving trends. Creating art that you like, in actual fact, speaks volumes of your authentic signature and who you are. So what has this got to do with what tool it's best for me to paint? Stay with me, because all of it has to do with that one question. People will tell you that it's not necessary to dive into the psychological aspects of you, because, just focus on technique, learn how to draw, learn how to mix paint, learn how to use a tool, and that's good enough. But in actual fact, how will you know what you like if you don't allow the things that you don't like about you to surface and therefore to be released? Do you like to paint outdoors is one question that I ask myself. If not, why not? Don't you like to go outdoors because you're fearful of being criticized and people giving you negative feedback? That's one thought. Do you like to paint portraits? If not, why not? When I started painting, and this is an absolute factual basis for my idiotic thought processes, when I started painting, I told myself that I will not paint portraits. In fact, I'm only going to stick to landscapes, and then it became still lifes, and lo and behold, now I love painting portraits. But I told myself I did not want to paint portraits. The psychology behind that was that I was afraid of making a mistake, of not making people look like themselves. And so why would I attempt to paint something that was not my own comfort zone? Now, I did eventually get into portraits, and that's another story of how I got there. But literally, I was my worst critic and put my own barriers in front of myself on not wanting to paint with portraits. Are you an impatient artist? An impatient, not in a negative term, meaning do you don't have the time or the energy to be detailed. You don't like to put every single stroke of hair on someone's portrait painting or every leaf on a still life. If you think of yourself as being quite impatient, then that means that you probably like to be a little bit more immediate, and you've got a lot of energy and movement, and you've got a lot of direct idea of capturing something quickly. Now, that's a good thing. So that's another thing that you want to think about yourself. Are you a detailed artist? Is the opposite of that. And if you're a detailed artist, that's also a good thing for you. That means you like to take time to be slow. You like to take your time to understand something. You like the detail of something. You like to immerse yourself in that detail. Understanding and knowing all of those questions gives you a closer move. You're honing in what tools are best for you. So there are so many questions that you can start to ask yourself before you can say, this is good for me, that's good for me. Because when you understand yourself and who you are, and when you're honest with what type of a personal preference you prefer, your personality, your emotions, your movement, choosing a tool is very, very easy. Remember, don't make something fit. Don't force yourself to like something. Don't force yourself to be a palette knife painter because that's what's popular, or those movements are what makes something great or not great. Whatever belief systems you've attached yourself to, just unravel that and question it before you say, well, that's it for me. I certainly had one idea of what I wanted to paint like, and it turned out to be a completely opposite idea to where I thought I wanted to go versus who really is within me that wanted to become that type of an artist. So let me impart a small story of how my journey started with palette knife painting. I went to a lot of private lessons and some group lessons, if you'd like, and everybody talked about painting with the brush. Now, these artists are absolute masters with using a brush. And just like every other tool, there is no one brush that suits all artists. Everybody had their own preference, whether it was camel hair, horse hair, synthetic, sable. I mean, this is for oil paint, of course. Everybody had their own preference. And these artists were absolute magicians. Second to that, they had their own color tones and hues that they preferred to work with, and that also became their signature. One artist that it was maybe perhaps the universe synchronistically directed me towards this artist. But when I began his art class, what I appreciated from his feedback is that he looked at my energetic personality. And when we had a lunch break, he asked me to stay back and said, you know, I noticed the way that you paint is with a lot of direct movements, and you almost, literally his words, you almost paint as if you are a musketeer, like you are fencing person, artist, I don't know what you call the person, but as if you are fencing and playing with a sword. So I would have my hand behind and I would hold my brush quite at a distance and want to get more broader strokes. Now, he painted with a palette knife, but he was teaching the class with the brush. He came over and he said, look, here's a palette knife, a painting palette knife, and I've talked about what they look like in my other videos, but he has given me his painting knife to use in that class, and he said, try that. When I used that knife, I mean, it was as if all the questions, all the pieces of the puzzle that I wanted to solve came together and everything made sense. It truly was like a big light bulb went inside my brain. I thought, this is magnificent. Why? Because for me, I'm an immediate artist. I love shapes. I love movement. I love painting wet into wet. I don't like detail. In fact, I love creating the illusion of detail from a distance, but when you get close to a subject, it looks very, very contemporary. I mean, almost like someone's haphazardly slapped paint on a canvas. So when I figured that about myself and my personality and what I like to focus on, how my mind was thinking, what it liked to think about, it was a true revelation. So that's what I'm saying, is that when you understand who you are, what you like to paint, why you like to paint, are you a scrambler, dry, brushing on a canvas versus wet into wet? Are you a glazer? These are all the questions that are very important for you to understand before you kind of say, this tool's for me or that tool's for me. So I hope that gives you a little bit more insight into where you are standing in terms of what's best to paint with. Okay, so this now leads me into the next question. What is my technique? And that technique, again, with the tool that you use, goes symbiotically together as one wave. When you understand what you are, who you are on the inside, how you like to paint, your technique will immediately reveal itself. Now, I also advocate that painting daily or twice a week, if possible, also allows you the ideology to understand what your technique is. When you start to paint a full painting, still life, portrait, landscape, and once you figure out where you need to speed up, slow down, what you want to work, what area of the artwork you further want to develop and work out, then you start to understand again what your technique is. So remember, are you a wet into wet, scrambler, detailer, hate or love painting portraits or don't like them, still life or landscape, love painting cows, don't love painting cows? impatient, not an impatient, direct movement artist. These are your clues as to your technique. Now, your technique is therefore synonymous, like I said, with the tool that you like to paint with. I have seen students come to my class that have got literally 3 filaments on their brush in between the ferrule, very difficult word to pronounce, which whether they got hog hair, camel hair, synthetic hair as part of their brushes, it doesn't matter, but they come with 3 strands in there and they attempt to have these, big gestured movements, but truly it comes down to saying, okay, I have to ditch the brushes. Those 3 filaments are for detailed work versus impasto, direct, immediate energy work. So again, remember, understanding who you are, you'll also develop the technique that you like to have as well. Inner dialogue is very important. And what do I mean by that? If you hear yourself saying, I'd love to be more direct, more impactful, and you're not being that, that means there's an internal fear, internal barrier that you have set up for yourself, a belief system that's stopping you doing that for a variety of reasons. But if you're hearing yourself saying, I'd like to be more impactful, that's also a small clue, a nugget that's telling you, choose a different direction, change just 1 degree, because a 1 degree difference here, further down the track, gives you a big change. So if you're hearing those type of internal dialogues, that's another clue to let you know that that's something you need to change in your studio. To know what your technique is to know who you are, truly, because we have this barrier that we put in front of us, and then we promote this fake self into the public realm and hide our unique, authentic selves for fear of being rejected, ridiculed, shamed, you name it. And really allowing our raw, authentic self to come forward is where our technique lies. It does not matter what others think of you. It really is all about what you think of yourself. The whole idea of me sharing my journey and my artwork isn't for validation. I put truly with all my heart, I put my stuff out there because I'm happy with what I've created. I love what I've created, and I'm simply sharing that with you. For me, it is a process of sharing something that brings me joy versus focusing on getting the validation to get joy, if that makes sense. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for a huge internal hurt and internal pain if you're looking for external validation. If another way of saying also, here's another question that I wanted to ask you if you're thinking, well, I don't know how to put myself out there. It's letting go of the good opinion of what other people think about you that you need to start to focus on. And when you let go of those opinions of what other people think about you, there's an inner freedom. There's this pure release of it really doesn't matter what you think. I don't know how to explain it deep enough without getting pseudo spiritual in this process. But there are people that have deeper problems, equal problems, if not more than what you think you have, that are battling their own inner demons. And when you understand that every single person has that, it really doesn't matter whether they think you're good or not good. Some people, in their good judgment and good love of wanting to give you praise, come across very nasty and cutting, because the biggest reason for that I've discovered is that instead of raising their own energy to meet you at the level that you are at, they come across to tear you down because they cannot bring themselves to change what hurts within them to match your energy. So they would rather bring someone else to their level to have that some sort of equal understanding of where they're at in layman's terms. So when you understand that people are fighting their own battles, it really, you lose this whole thing of trying to please everybody else. Okay, so we've talked about what tools are best for me and what is my technique. I'm going to place that into the technical category of learning to be an artist. And that's all great. It's necessary, 100%. The other 50%, which is where I feel is more my energy has been directed to, is what do I need to learn about me in order to allow my art practice to come through. Now, this is something that I have discovered for the last couple of decades, to put it lightly, that every time I have come up to a new level, that's a level for me, not for society or anybody else, every time I've come up to a new level, I've discovered just how much I still need to learn. It is the most weirdest experience, it is the most weirdest inner visceral emotion that comes through me, and energy that comes through me that lets me know, good on you, congratulations, you've arrived here, but there's so much more to learn. And this is, sometimes I get angry at myself, sometimes I praise myself. It's a love and hate relationship between me and me. But certainly that's something that I've discovered that is a necessary aspect of being an artist. Art reveals the things that I need to learn. When I learn what I need to learn, it reveals what I love about art and me. Weird thing that I'm explaining here, but let me dive deeper into it. So this is where most artists tend to perhaps only focus, and I think they fall short, because to look at ourselves, to understand ourselves, sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's joyful, but most of the time it is coming up against ourselves and our own demons that are within ourselves, and that is not pleasant, let me tell you, because this is a journey between you and nobody else. And most of the time we want to keep those suppressive and repressive belief systems and emotions buried down. But once you release that, once you integrate those repressed and suppressed parts of yourself, you find that that's the actual freedom, that's the zone that's necessary for creating art. Paradox, I know, but certainly something that I have found incredibly useful. The things that I wanted to avoid, unfortunately, art and life has a way of continually knocking on your head and letting you know that you need to deal with them. So never stop learning is probably my one thing that I will tell you about the art practice. Read. Absolute, the most beneficial thing that I have discovered, and I'll talk about that. Experiment. I have gone through using different ways of painting with oil paint. Then there's been using watercolors, acrylics. I'm looking into gouache at the moment, which I absolutely love how that medium behaves. And I paint what I love. I really do paint what I love. At the same time, I've also painted what I was fearful of. And as I explained, in this case, portraits. 2 decades ago was something that I absolutely feared. Again, I went through that process and I discovered just how much I love painting people. I have been told that I needed to focus on conceptual art versus what I'm doing at the moment and the style that I have at the moment. This does not make me happy. I experimented with conceptual art and it's something that just doesn't bring joy and fulfillment. It doesn't light me up from the inside. My energy just does not connect with that style of work. So that's something that I've also learned about myself. I like my work to the point that I'm sharing it with everybody, not to get validation. And so for me to have gone into the conceptual art ideology, it was really pandering to the commercial aspects of art, and I just did not want to do that. I love painting people, like I said, and so for me that has been an incredible focus, which I never thought, just to be clear again, that I would do. And most of all, I absolutely love experimenting, playing with color. I cannot begin to tell you how much I love that. One of the things that I discovered through my prolific reading is just how important color is, part of frequency, part of emotions, and part of how it makes humanity in how we uplift humanity. And so color has become an amazing part of my art journey. The thing that I also discovered about myself is that all my professional encounters, like I said, I've recommended that I go down the conceptual contemporary way of painting. What I discovered about that is that they were really saying who you are is not good enough, your authentic self is not good enough, and that you had to become somebody else. That's something that I definitely was not happy doing. I learned that we are one of one in this entire universe. When you get your head around that really there is nobody else in this world like you, why would you want to be like anybody else? We might have similarities across the board. We might have similar ideas and similar points of view, but I could never be anybody else other than who I am. So painting like somebody else, it's just not in my purview at this point in time. Certainly if someone's insisting that you be like somebody else, just be mindful that they're asking for you to be somebody else other than who you are. If you like what to do, and this was an interesting point that I wanted to also address, if you like what you do, that's really all that matters. If one or two people don't like who you are, remember this, there are nearly 7 billion more people in the world that you have an opportunity to meet and will potentially like you. So focus on meeting other people than those one or two that don't like who you are. So just remember that. What I have learned to keep on doing and to learning is when I paint, my heart is in a space of flow, if they call it the zone. It is the most weirdest thing to explain. It feels like everything slows down and I'm aware of everything around me. It's speeding up, but yet slowing down. So in order for me to achieve that is to really paint what you love and what you love to do. Most artists keep looking at needing to improve their technique. Whilst this is valid, I say 95% of our artistic impediment comes down to what we think about ourselves, how we let other people treat us. We keep focusing on attaining validation from the outside world, and that should be something that we should stop doing. We keep our self-talk negative and by saying I'm not good enough. And I think once we change all of that and focus on I am good enough, I love who I am, I love what I like to paint, things begin to change very, very quickly. So I have dedicated my time to learning how to paint. Absolutely, technique valid 100%. But my other 50, like I said, is dedicating yourself to the psychology of art and who you are and revealing that aspect of yourself. Be honest with yourself. This is really important. If your inner dialogue does not look like soft, gentle, it doesn't sound loving, it's not kind or mindful, this is where your work needs to be. I have the largest pusher in my brain. But pusher in a negative way. You got to do better. You got to find things, move, work harder, do longer hours, get up earlier in the morning. I love my pusher, but I have learned to listen to it with love and kindness, not with I'm not good enough, so do it. Now, this is a very, very big difference. And once I understood that about myself, I started to understand just how hard I was on myself versus being soft, gentle, loving, kind, and mindful. Being okay with living in the unknown is the other aspect of your art journey. Change really is the only constant that happens in our life. Change. And if we're okay with change, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow is actually okay. Being in the zone of comfortability will keep you blinded to what is coming around the corner. For me, this is like stagnant water. So comfortability is a weird thing. It's actually not my stronghold. I love when I don't know exactly what I'm needing or having to do, because this is where I excel. This is where my fire burns brighter. So that's why for me, the unknown has become my absolute beautiful, beautiful friend. So I have learned to love what I don't know, what I am yet to learn, and what is unfamiliar. This has afforded me the opportunity to be more flexible, to learn how to deal with things that come unexpectedly, to learn how to rise to the occasion, to learn how to be okay when something happens that I did not expect to happen. And the beauty of that is that you let go of control and you let go of being stiff and you move around life with more pliability. Now, I have an unwavering persistence, discipline, and laser-focused perspective of getting those negative monkeys off my back. And in 1 year, I spent reading approximately 15 books. Now, when I say I spent reading 15 books, I meant understanding them, knowing them, feeling them, incorporating them into my mind and body and connecting them at the same time. And I remember saying that I don't know why I felt unable to go in my studio, but I had this urge to actually dive into those books. And they were mainly books. I think maybe about 4 or so were art books, but majority were psychological, brain related, heart related, energy related, frequency related, psychology related. I think I said that already. And when I read those books, I discovered just how much we need to release our old programming in order to do what we are called in life to do. And not just art, I'm talking about whether you're in dancing, whether you're a woodworker, whether you like to garden, whether you are a Forex trader, by the way, whether you like cooking, whether you like wood turning, whether you like to explore new surroundings. They're all necessary to release, all those books, by the way, necessary to release the impediments that we have created for ourselves. So, lastly, know this. You are in control of your life. Now, this is a very, very loaded statement, but know you are fully in control of your life and you can direct it in any which way you can. Knowing how is knowing you. Second, circumstances do not matter. How you respond matters, but the circumstance does not matter. How you respond, the speed at which you respond is knowing you and your inner rooted self. That knowing is, secret power, secret weapon. That's all I'm saying about that. What you are not changing, you are choosing. I repeat that again. This is a powerful statement. What you are not changing, you are choosing. So basically, the buck stops with you. If you continually do the same things over and over again and expect a different result, that is on you. If you're complaining about something not working in your life, that really is on you. If you're complaining that you are not comfortable and that people keep making fun of you when you go out to paint, that is on you. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can certainly control how you respond. So remember, what you are choosing, you are not changing. Now that's a lot of information to unpack in what I think is about a 30-minute video. I hope I've been able to have been concise and clear in the message of how you choose your tool, your technique, and more importantly, knowing who you are in order to be able to make those 2 top choices. I'd love to hear from you. Comment below what have been your biggest lessons and how you've moved through that. Remember, another thing too that I always want to leave you with is that while you are in this world, you are the light of the world. No one else like you, and there will never be anybody else like you. Do not be fooled by people that tell you otherwise. You don't look like anyone, you don't sound like anyone, and you certainly do not paint like anyone. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your support and kindness. As always, be good to yourself. Bye, guys.